All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I'm your host, Damon Pistolka. And with me today, I've got none other than Steve Rice from Dotcomjungle. Steve, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I like the none other. It makes me maybe sound like I was the center fielder for the Red Sox or something.
Maybe you were. We haven't let people know yet. Maybe you
That's
were.
right. I wanted to be, but it would have been the Angels. That's where I grew up. So.
There you go. There you go. Well, yeah, good West Coast team.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. So, Steve, it's awesome to have you on today because, man, we work in similar ecospheres. You're in the CPG space, helping them figure out their technology and how that interfaces with people. And really, what we want to talk about today, and I was excited about talk about, is how you're helping people improve technology effectiveness in their businesses, and how you talk about management by walking around and applying that to getting them using their technology better.
Yeah, I guess for me, life has always been about the human experience, and you grow up in America, you work at places, whether it's Taco Bell, Spaghetti Factory, REI, whatever, you're going to run into good bosses and bad bosses. And, we take that with us wherever we go. And I remember, as a youth, experiencing, the horrible owner, so to speak, who seemed to be a great person until he was inside the building. And I always promised myself that I didn't want to work for people like that. And two, I wanted to have businesses that I would want to be employed by, and proud to be employed by, and that I wanted to help other businesses do the same. My adult life has been in pursuit of those things in business and in my personal life.
That's cool. That's cool, man. Well, I cannot overlook your background, how you growing up the way you did. It's not like the typical, kid down the street. So why don't we back up a ways and tell us a little bit about your childhood and growing up the way you did with the outdoors? And I mean, you got outdoors just throughout you. It's in you, and you can't escape you. So this is cool to hear this.
Yeah, it's definitely a DNA thing. Going back to birth, I was fortunate enough to, my father was one of the people who was around in the 60s and helped invent the sport of bass fishing as we know it. He's actually in the Freshwater Hall of Fame. He will someday be inducted into the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. It's kind of silly that he's not already, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So I grew up fishing everywhere, and helping him as a little kid, count the money at the tournaments, and weigh the fish, and there were other people there. I'm not saying I was in a position of responsibility, but I was there, and I traveled all over the U.S. And as I got older, when I was a teenager, I actually was the alternate at the tournaments for when they had an odd number of folks. And
oh, really?
Yeah, so you got to have two people in the boat, and one of the reasons is to make sure someone's not cheating.
Yeah.
With that, and in addition to my dad being a fisherman, knowing everybody, I have fished with most of the famous people from the 70s or 80s, and in doing so became a really good fisherman, just sort of naturally, right?
Yeah.
The downside to that is, until I became an adult and moved away from home and stopped fishing with my dad and his friends, I got outfished every day of my life. It didn't matter how good I was, because the guy in the front of the boat or my dad were way better, right?
Yeah.
So that was cool. And the other cool thing is, I'm not sure I ever told you this, but my dad ended up becoming friends with a bunch of the Los Angeles Rams in the 70s because they like to fish. And they tracked him down, and he took him down to Mexico and San Diego to the big bass lakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I sat on the couch and watched a couple Super Bowls with, Jack Youngblood and Rich Saul and Larry Brooks and, the all-pro linemen for the Rams. But all this outdoor stuff, my parents' business models and things they were involved in also changed. And at some point they got into TV show production around fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a video production company with the number one rated fishing show in the United States from like 83 to 89 or 84 to 89, something like that. And so I also traveled with them as a grip, managing waterproof camera equipment and also fishing. And then eventually ended up in Alaska as a fishing guide. So I have a bunch of different lives, right?
Yeah.
I was a fishing guide in Alaska for a couple of years. That was exciting. I also was a rock climbing and mountaineering instructor in Oregon. Assistant manager of an outdoor store and a travel store.
Well, we'll get back. I want to talk to you
Right.
about the climbing and the fishing because, hey, I grew up in South Dakota, right on the Missouri River, and we fished a lot there, and it was fishing, hunting, outdoors. So we got some questions about that, but we got some people we know that are watching here today. So Ingvar,
hi Ingvar,
out there saying hello, and we've got Gail saying hello.
Hi,
She's
Gail.
having supper and listening in, 3 hours ahead of us. They get to do that about now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can't see who this is, but I think it's somebody you would know, but I'd have to look on. For some reason, StreamYard doesn't always pull
clearly a person of refined taste.
Yes. There you go. There you go. So when you were okay, so first of all, back up, because you were fishing about the time that in the 80s. That's when I was just getting into college, and then when I moved to Tennessee, I going from South Dakota, we fished for bass a little bit, but it was more walleye fishing on the Missouri River. But man, when I moved to Tennessee, I got a lesson in bass fishing, man. The local lake where I was out there, I was water skiing and wakeboarding every day I could. And every Tuesday night, they had a bass fishing tournament on this lake every night.
Oh yeah.
And there's
every lake in the South.
It's like it was like a religion. There's like 30 boats out there. They line up just like a regular tournament. They come in and they weigh them all up, and all catch and release when they're done. Oh, it's great stuff. And the size of fish too, because as you get farther south, they get nice big ones. So
it goes from smallmouth to northern largemouth to southern Florida largemouth. Those are the big ones. And I've fished on a lot of those lakes. I've Guntersville Lake in Alabama, Stockton Lake in Missouri, Table Rock, Lake of the Ozarks, a bunch of those ones back there, and Texas, Lake Livingston, and certainly every major bass lake on the West Coast in the state of California, Nevada, and Arizona. I don't think there's a single one I haven't fished on. And then so in the end, I grew up a bass fisherman. I'm now a fly fisherman, but I'm really agnostic. So what I have is like sort of an innate knowledge of fish, and I can read rivers, I can read lakes, and if you put a stick in my hand with a string and something on the end, I could do as well as the next guy. So that's been like the legacy. I think that's pretty fun.
Right? That's no doubt. And that was Ingvar said that was Chuck. So thanks, Chuck, for the comment. So. He would know. So that's really cool. That is actually incredible. I just think about it. So incredible that you're able to do this. So if you had to pick one place that you just said it is the place, if you can just go there to fish, whether you catch a fish or not, you're just going to sit there in awe. Where is that?
Oh gosh, probably I'm going to pick the largest state in our fine country and say Alaska. And if you had to pick a specific spot, anywhere around Juneau. Although the Kenai is amazing. Anywhere. Here's the cool thing about the Kenai: it's like you fly into Anchorage and you get in a van, an unassuming van, and you drive out to the Kenai, and all of a sudden you're passing these amazing glaciers and carved fjords, and you look out to your left and there's grizzly bears, and you look to your right and there's narwhals, or what are the ones with the unicorn horn? Belugas, something.
Belugas.
Now I'm forgetting, but maybe it is. But it's just and orcas everywhere, And as a fishing guide in Southeast Alaska, I was on Admiralty Island, which is southwest of Juneau and directly east of Sitka. So if you can imagine the panhandle, sort of the top of that panhandle, has the largest density of grizzly bears in the world per square mile. And my job was to stand between the guests and the bears with a shotgun. So I'm not a gun nut, but I have a really big gun with an extended chamber, 12 gauge that I still have today. But it's just spectacular to take a skiff up into a river and see 6 bears, the behinds at least of them,
Yeah.
waddle into the trees and then wait there snorting and panting and making all sorts of scary noises, and leave behind fish whose bellies are missing, but they're still flopping around because they're alive.
Yeah.
They're going for the belly fat and the eggs. And then you look around you and it's just trees everywhere and fish everywhere. It's spectacular.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah. I should have known. I've only been to Alaska a few times, and I just about cried when you get outside there. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. And if people really want to go to the most unspoiled place that we haven't decimated yet, I would say like you got to get up to Bristol Bay.
Oh yeah.
And if you see the stickers on people's car that says no pebble mine, that's the place you want to go. The Copper River area. It's the Bristol Bay might be the most pristine and the best managed fishery in the planet. And we don't always give fisheries biologists and the government credit for what they do, but that's as good as it gets of what's left in the world.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's incredible because like you said, the experiences that you had from that, from starting out with your father, and then how that led into being a guide in Alaska, and then some of those, the experiences just being in the natural beauty.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And I would make this connection, like, let's connect all this fun stuff to like where I'm at today.
Yeah.
We can fill in the middle, but I think the thing that my parents gave me that has suited me well, that I hope that I give my children, is a sense of adventure and fearlessness. And in my own business experiences, and in the advisory capacities that I've been in with businesses, that's the thing that I think I bring that brings a lot of value, because it touches so many things.
Yeah.
And in business, sometimes the worst thing you can do is do nothing.
Yep.
In fact, a lot of people who are way smarter than me say if you're not doing something, you're standing still, right? And I think that's true, and I'm not necessarily even a proponent of constant growth all the time either. I think you have to look at your industry and see what you want from the human perspective. Like, what do you want?
Yeah.
As I was actually advising a client of mine earlier today, and maybe it was yesterday, I talked to him and I said, look, the KPI for me, the key performance indicator for me, is if you and your wife have a better relationship. Because when your business is performing better, you're going to sleep better.
Yep. You're
going to be less grumpy, in the afternoon, or you've already been working 10 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for. And so to me, that sense of adventure, and I've been across the United States 9 times in a car. I've got over 100,000 road miles. The only state I haven't been to is Michigan. I've been around the world. I've been to China, Hong Kong, Thailand, Ireland, France, Spain, Chile, Peru. I've been some of those countries multiple times.
Nice.
I've climbed in almost all of those countries. But when it comes down to business, that fearlessness is the willing to try, and there's aspects of being a fishing guide and being a rock climbing instructor and mountaineering instructor where the safety and the humanity of the people that are with you is foremost to the getting to the peak, right? And I think those are things that to me are more important than getting to the peak of a particular business too. Like, we're not just here to kick our competitors' A's. We're here to be the best that we can be in our business, and the best that we can be for our employees and the community that we're in. So.
Sorry, that little interruption that I thought I would have, I did have, so we got to take
That's
care
good.
of.
I thought
Yeah,
about filling it in with words, and then I thought, well, we
yeah,
got lots of
no,
time.
no, sorry. I apologize that the
You mean
rudeness there.
you're a human too, David?
Yeah, it's funny how that works. But anyway, this, because you're right. It is about the bringing this back together and showing the human interaction between what they're doing, and a lot of times in the businesses, the people, owners will run their business at the cost of their personal health, their family's relationship, their everything. And,
Yep.
and that's what I really appreciate about your approach, is that you're talking to them about the overall.
Yeah.
And I like that too. In fact, I speak to some similar things as well, because it doesn't do you any good if you work your butt off and you end up 2 years down the road with no family when you come home at night, or
Exactly.
or you're in the hospital, which is even worse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I do speak from experience, because I've made those mistakes. I'm fortunate. I just celebrated my 30th anniversary, my first kiss with my wife, and our 25th wedding anniversary. She's still with me, put up with me. But I've had
Yes.
moments where I was running businesses where I was driving myself into the ground,
Yeah.
and I eventually sought out peers and advisors who helped me work through that, helped me change my own working style, and made me a better business person and made me a better person.
Yeah.
So when I'm consulting and advising, an owner of a consumer products company, I very often have a personal story, or like I could say, yeah, I know, I understand it. Even I just talked to one of my guys who's got two very important people on the production floor who have somehow upset each other a couple times over the years, and they have a few grudges. And I've worked with that. I've
Yeah.
I've I've had to be the HR guy in a company, and have two people that are integral to the function of the company that I adore individually, who just can't get along. And I have mechanisms that I was taught by somebody else, or that
Mm-hmm.
everything I have is stolen from somebody else, whether it
Yeah.
was a college professor or a mentor or an advisor of my own, and I bring those to the table for them. And so it's an exciting thing to do, to help a company in that way. And it's also exciting to have somebody say, like, man, that's something I've been dreading forever. And when I went and did it in this particular way, I felt like a human being talking to them, and they felt like human beings talking to me. And our company's better for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's you bring up one of, I think, the key elements in someone that really can help in a business, and that is teaching those people that you don't necessarily need to love that person standing beside you, but if you can somehow at least respect what they're doing, and that they've got good intentions and you've got good intentions, that if you can get them to do that and get a working relationship built around that, that's a huge thing.
yeah,
uh, so many people let it fester too long, rather than just saying, "Whoop, we're going to stop and take care of this," because it's not good for either one of you or the business as a whole.
yeah. Well, and if you don't mind, I'm going to tout somebody else and then tell a story
Let's
about
do it.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a guy named Stephen Sloan, and he's written a book called Humane Leadership, and he's the founder of the Humane Leadership Institute. And I'm going to recommend to anyone who hears this, just go buy that book. And he's a big proponent of what he calls a performance mocha, which is a modified version of something that's been proposed by lots of other people. And I use this as a framework, and it's been kind of revolutionary for me and my businesses, and for the people that I help implement it as well. And MOCA basically stands for motivation, opportunity, clarity, and ability. And literally, I actually have a 10-year-old iMac that I'm selling on Craigslist, and I had to remove a piece of paper that I'd taped to the footstand that said MOCA and told me what those things were as a daily reminder. And
Nice.
it's just a framework to have a conversation with people. And one of the companies that I owned and ran for a while was an outdoor store, and we had 20 employees, and not everybody's going to get along. But we implemented Mocha as a conversational framework so that we could actually have better performance reviews,
Yeah.
because frankly, everybody mostly dreads performance reviews. And when you start talking about motivation, opportunity, clarity, and ability, and you tell everybody else that this is how they should have the conversation, the stuff like, well, she did this and she did that, or they did this or he did that, kind of drops away. And you open up the door for a conversation where the employee gets to assess themselves on what their motivation uh, is to do, even whether it's their job as a whole or a specific task. They get to talk about the opportunity that they've been given or not, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not uncommon for a boss to say, I want you to do this stuff. We're going to add this to your workload, but not actually give them time to do it. Right. And then the clarity. Does my boss give me the clarity, and do I have the ability? And I've yet to have a conversation around Mocha or using the Mocha framework with somebody where we didn't cover all the bases of the human experience with those 4 topics.
Yeah.
And so, like, I even had an employee once come to me where I had given him a task, and I just checked in and I said, how are you doing? And he said, you know what? I woke up this morning and I mochaed myself. And I said, oh, Jeff, do tell. What do you mean? He said, well, I realized, like, you were really clear about what I'm doing here. You know, I have this job in the social media sphere around outdoor products. It's pretty exciting. You were really clear about what you want me to do. And I clearly have the ability, because I did this in my last job for the nonprofit. And you've given me the opportunity. So every day between 8 and 10, that's my job before the store opens. He said, I woke up this morning realizing I am completely unmotivated to do this, because at my last job at the nonprofit, I was micromanaged and needled and demeaned in ways that are kind of weird, and it affected me emotionally. And he said, so I mochaed myself while I was eating cereal this morning, and I want to tell you that I'm going to renew my commitment to my motivation around this, and I'll check in with you in 2 weeks and see how I'm doing with myself. And I was like, how awesome is that?
Yeah.
My management job was done over a bowl of cereal, and I didn't even have to do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
And
awesome. That's
the
awesome.
the
Yeah.
best story around that, Damon, if you don't remember, one quick one is that
Yeah.
I had 2 people who were great people. Getting back to that, 2 people get along or don't get along, both integral to the stability of the sales floor, well loved by customers. Everybody knew their name that walked in the door, and they knew everybody else's name. But for some reason, they were just not getting along.
Yeah.
I gave them $20 one day, and I said, there's a brew pub across the street. I want you to go across the street and buy a beer, take as long as you want. And even though the Mocha framework wasn't designed for this, I want you guys to talk to each other using the Mocha framework about how you get along and how you're going to work this out, because it's your relationship is really important to the success of this company. And right now, your relationship is affecting all of us because we're all worried about you. And I said, and we need both of you here. So you need to work something out. And they went, and they were actually gone for 2 hours, had 2 beers, and they came back and were best friends. You know, and 5 years later, they still, even though they don't work at the same place, they still connect and talk regularly.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but it was, it was another one of those things. My job was done. It cost me $20.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
So
so awesome, because it is sometimes it is that simple. It's just giving people the right framework and opportunity to do it. Cause honestly, and I'm glad you mentioned the book, because I'm going to get it. We are expected to know things that we don't know.
yeah,
And I think that the more I just, let's just be blunt with it. The older I get, the more you realize that there's all this stuff that we think for some reason people think we should know, and we have no freaking idea. I mean,
yep.
and
And we make mistakes over and
yeah,
over again.
yeah, over and over again, until you go, oh, okay, well, there is a better way to do this. So it's great that you do that, and then that framework sounds awesome as well. So Gail said, got a question for you. So we better answer Gail's question here quick before we move on. She says, what has fishing taught you about business? Your greatest life lesson?
Patience. You will not catch fish every day. And I'm not even talking about fishing now, where this is the metaphor, right? You will not be successful every day at what you do. and you will not make the right decisions every day. But you will catch fish. You will have great days. You'll have bad days, and it's the other piece. And I relate this to fly fishing. It's really important to be standing in the river and have your line in the water. Right.
Yep.
So you can't catch a fish if you're sitting on your couch.
Yeah, that's for sure.
To quote Brian Regan, or to paraphrase Brian Regan, don't tape fishing to watch again later. You need to go out.
Go out and do it.
You need to go out and do it.
Yeah.
So thanks, Gail, for the prompt.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was an awesome question. So now you are a climber too.
Yes. So, I still enjoy climbing. And and I was never an amazing climber. The Yosemite decimal system, they're up to like 516, 515B or something. I think the hardest climb I ever climbed was 511A. But I have climbed in some of the most beautiful places in the world, including Yosemite and Thailand and Spain, cliffs over the water kind of thing, all over Oregon and in California, Tahquitz, Idlewild area, Joshua Tree has been a great experience. And so it's something that I still enjoy. I have 3 boys who all rock climb. Wow. And we've done a lot of that. We've actually traveled all around the West Coast with them to different climbing areas.
Nice.
And they all still climb today. And mostly my job now is to be the belayer for them. And they all climb pretty hard. So, one of the so all my kids are in college. They all came back COVID. And at some point I said to them, we're sitting on the kitchen table, I was thinking, when COVID is over and we're all back together some point, between school or after school, I'd really love to do another big trip with you guys. And I'm thinking, we've been to Guanajuato, Mexico on a really cool little league baseball trip that was fun. We've been to France and Hawaii, and we've been to all over British Columbia. And I'm thinking they're going to say, yeah, let's go to Hawaii. And all 3 of them at once said City of Rocks, which is a climbing area at the very bottom of Idaho. And my wife kind of rolled her eyes. She said, no. He was thinking, Paris.
Yeah.
Paris, Barcelona, San Sebastian, Bilbao, Pamplona, Madrid. And she was kind of laughing at it. I said, yeah, but I'm really happy with City of Rocks because that's a place where I can go and I can climb a 5-5 traditional route, which means there's cracks for me to put my fingers in, and which I really like. And I can get to the top and sidle over to the left and put up some top ropes for my kids in the 5'10" to 5'12" range, and then they can climb hard things because they'd get bored on the 5'5". So
that's incredible. It's great that you got something to do with your kids, and it's a similar experience for me. Our kids came home, the first round of COVID, and it's a special time because you just don't get that. You don't get that time with your kids. Did you guys did you enjoy that when they?
Yeah, and it was one of those waterfalls of activity flowing towards our house, and at the time, I think my oldest son was a sophomore. He's going into his senior year at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And I have twin boys who are, they were seniors at the time, heading into university, Lewis and Clark up in Portland.
Oh yeah.
And so just as these are incredible kids, and the twins were supposed to go they went to nationals, or supposed to go to nationals for debate. They were in this thing called Brain Bowl and all these events that got canceled because of COVID. And so the last 2 months of their senior year essentially disappeared. They didn't get to walk. They didn't get to win any awards. They didn't get to hang out with their friends. They didn't even get the schools basically said, okay, well, we have some homework, but everybody's pretty much getting an A. And when my son came home from college for spring break, they had said, oh, well, we're just going to extend spring break a week and see what happens. Well, between the time he left and the 9-hour drive back to our house, they had already announced that they were going to wait another month before people came back. And 3 days later, they said, we're going completely online. So my wife and I went from preparing to be empty nesters to now having 3 boys and my oldest son's girlfriend, whose family lives way out in the woods that doesn't have Wi-Fi. So now she's hanging at our house because she's going to to Northwestern and needs a place that actually has Wi-Fi that's quiet, which turned out to be our kitchen table. So, did we have fun? We had a blast. And I remember looking at my wife and I said, we just need to look at this like this is an extended Christmas treat. And it's going to last for 9 months. And it did. And so I'm fortunate that my children like me and we get along and they like each other. And we all enjoy doing things together. So, I'm going to tell excuse me. I'm going to tell you that I'm the luckiest dad in the world because I play music. I've been a multi-instrumentalist since I was a teenager. I taught myself guitar and bass and mandolin and banjo, and I'm not very good at any of them, but I'm good enough to hang. But I don't know how many parents have said this, but my children have texted me when I had an office away from here saying, "Can you come home early so we can play rock and roll?" Because I have a drummer and 2 guitarists in the house to go with me. And so, like, I've actually come home from work and got to play Pixies and the Beatles and Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin, and then, all sorts of classic rock and alternative rock and stuff. So
nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love hearing that because, there, as crappy as COVID was for a lot of people, I mean, those experiences with family that we had because of it are precious. I mean, especially with kids that are your age or my age that are in that college age or right around there, we'll never have that chance again. Yeah.
And I made some conscious decisions as a business person to change what was going on in my business life so that I could have that. Because, as I mentioned, I do advise people like they got to remember their life and their wife or their husband. Let's not pretend that it's just men running the businesses.
Yeah.
You got to remember your spouse.
Yeah.
And there was a point where I had one too many businesses, and one of them was an outdoor store. And I was working 50, 60 hours a week, and I was not that pleasant to be around, and it was hard work. But also, I couldn't say yes if my children said, can you come home? Because I couldn't. I felt like I couldn't. And so I made a decision to get rid of one of those businesses so that I could have a better life. And in the end, getting rid of the outdoor store allowed me to go outdoors with my family more.
Yeah.
And now I'm actually this Saturday, I'm going to be whitewater inflatable kayaking a section of the Klamath River, class 2 and 3 whitewater with my sons and best friends. And we're going to make laps in this section. That's really fun.
Nice.
2 weekends ago, I was rock climbing at Bishop's Peak in San Luis Obispo with my wife and kids. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And
we haven't really talked about business much.
well, we got time. That's the thing. That's the thing I like about this, because I mean, there's a lot to business, and people think about it far often, too many times it's one-dimensionally, and really it's when you're in business at the level you are, or other owners and advisors are, you really get the whole person, and you need to understand that person and what they're doing and what they believe, because like you said, what you believe, you help your clients live that life that has some balance, that has some different pieces to it, so that they can have a healthy and happy life. And it takes that. So
and in a business, what you have are 10 to 100 people who are all connected.
Yeah.
And that business is like a person too.
Yeah.
It has a culture and a personality, and it needs to be maintained, sometimes the businesses need therapists, right?
Yes.
And they need different types, and those people are usually called consultants. And sometimes they work on culture. Sometimes they work on systems. Sometimes they actually, like I work with a company that's frequently listed in Oregon as one of the top 5 companies in the state to work for. And they really work hard on that personal communication style. And they have rules that they follow that give people the power to communicate with each other to make it so that, the mandate is we don't want things to blow up, but you also have a responsibility to make sure things don't blow up yourself before you come to your superior and say, I'm having a problem with somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they have people who are in charge of the culture who come in on a regular basis, and sometimes, you know, they might actually talk to somebody about their own personal life, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of executives. Let me put it this way: it's really lonely to be an executive
It is.
because you can't really talk to your employees
No.
about the stuff that worries you in a way that won't worry them.
Mm-hmm.
And your spouse might not understand what you do because, you know,
Yep.
they're maybe busy being a doctor or a bus driver or something. Right?
Yeah.
They don't understand what you're going through, and you can't necessarily go to the owner of the company and say, like, I'm worried about all this stuff. And, you know, maybe you should, but maybe the owner's not receptive. So
Yeah.
having somebody that you can talk to, you know, as an example, I've had somebody say, like, I just totally feel like an imposter. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, you know, and my job is to say, well, what's true is that there are things you don't know what you're doing about, like let's be honest about what your weaknesses are, and let's find out what your strengths are,
Yeah.
and maybe let's figure out if what other people think your strengths and weaknesses are, which is where Mocha comes in.
Yeah.
And you know, the other thing is, don't be afraid to be honest with the people around you. You know, like I've sat in a room with people who looked at me and said, "You're the expert," and I've literally, and this is the fearlessness. It's like, I really don't know.
Yeah.
You know, if I have a superpower, one of them is that I will not tell you I know something if I don't know it, and I will, even if I have the fear that it's going to make me maybe not be as have as much influence in the room, which never actually ends up being true. You always
Yeah.
have more influence when you admit that you don't know something. That I'm constitutionally incapable of, like, lying or faking it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so.
Yeah, it's funny you said that because I was on a call last week with some people that were really getting an opinion, and I said I don't know, and
Mhm.
to something like that, they thought, well, you're the ones. I said I don't know everything. This is a
Mhm.
special situation. I said, Mike, I know who to talk to that probably will know, and we'll figure that out that way. But being able to do that way, I think, is very is telling, and it shows that you're willing to work with others to get the best solution you can in
Yeah.
a lot of terms too. So let's talk a little bit more about, so we got off on the kids and all that good stuff. I can talk about kids forever, but and outdoors, those are this mixed baseball in there in my day's shot. So we have so now you move forward, you've been helping, you've had your own businesses, helping businesses, and now explain a little bit about Dotcomjungle and how you're helping people now in their businesses, and the MBWA that you use.
Yeah. Well, so Dotcomjungle from the outside kind of looks like we build websites, right?
Yeah.
But what we really do is help companies make and implement wise technology decisions. And you can't do that from the outside with a product and just say everybody needs this. Like, not everybody needs Sage, not everybody needs CSI, not everybody needs Salesforce or HubSpot. And in order to help them actually and show them how to make these decisions, we don't just make the decisions for them. We show them how to go through the process of learning how to get the information they need to make the decision.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, I think that's one of the most important skill sets that a leadership group can have, and upper management. And it's also one of the things that's sort of easiest to fall away, and not in a bad way because someone's, people are bad or not smart or something. But if management team or the management team says to upper management, we want some information about what are the challenges people are having, the natural thing for that manager to do is turn around and say, okay, I've got 8 people working for me, what challenges do you guys face? And they might get some feedback. Well, what's actually happening is that you're getting feedback about stuff that maybe is top of mind right now, but there's also opportunities at every space for all of those employees to circumvent all the systems or any of the systems that you've put in place so that they can do their job better. And they don't look at that like it's a challenge. They look at that as a success. And they're
Yeah.
right? And I'll give you an example is that we were working with a company where we had streamlined all of their shipping processes. This was maybe 14 years ago. And we built them a website. We had it connected to their ERP. We ended up circumventing the ERP in order to get to the shipping department to send them the files that they needed to drop onto the server so they could click a button for World Ship and some of the other tools for USPS, and it would print out all the labels they needed, right? And in one click. Well, they had implemented the marketing team had come up with an infomercial. And as part of that infomercial, they had hired a phone company to answer the phones and take the orders and then send that information off. And through a series of quirks, we were involved in the mapping of that file so that it could be imported into the ERP. Well, somewhere along the line, the head of shipping was having trouble once again with the ERP because they didn't map it the way that we mapped everything else, and they didn't ask us about that, and we weren't aware of what happened on the other end of this, right? At least initially. But so he wasn't getting what he needed, and he found out that there was a spreadsheet on the server somewhere. He found where that spreadsheet was, opened it up, and said, "Oh, if I make a couple changes to this, then I can import this. I can use it for my UPS file." So he started doing that. The second he did that, the folks in finance who were supposed to import this file into their ERP and then match all the invoices, they were supposed to be automatically matched from the phone service. Everything broke. And so they sent an email to the IT person who said, well, let me check the format. So then they got a sample format from the phone people and it matched. They sent us a sample format and said, is this the right thing? And we said, yeah, that matches. And then the IT person said, well, everything's fine. And the finance people said, well, it's not fine, but I don't have time to deal with you. So we're just gonna, the CFO put like 4 people every day. They were matching 200 plus orders by hand in the system for the last hour of every day, to get this job done. Meanwhile, the other guy's spending an hour every day massaging the spreadsheet to get his job done. He succeeded because he went and clicked a button and he'd print out 269 labels and bam, 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 bam. And an hour later, all those boxes were sitting on a pallet ready to go via UPS. Yeah. He didn't know he was affecting them. And he had also, sent a note to the IT person saying, what's wrong with this? But she didn't make the connections, and not because she's not a smart person, but what she didn't do is walk over to him and say, what are you doing? And this is the management by walking around. I knew something was wrong because I sat with the marketing department in this particular instance, and I could sort of see the operations from the rest of the company. And I was in touch with the shipping people, and I was in touch with finance. So I knew through the sales team and finance that something was off. And I just talked to the owner. I said, let me come down and walk around for a little bit. And I went over to the shipping guy and I said, hey, so, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm working on this spreadsheet. Oh, okay. Well, why are you doing that? Well, because, I can't get the stuff out of the ERP and I have to do this thing. And I said, okay, well, show me what you're doing. And, when he did it, he clicked the button and I said, was that what you expected to happen? He's like, well, what I expected to happen is for me not to have to work on this spreadsheet, and I already knew where the spreadsheet was. So we ended up having a meeting with about 6 different C-suite executives and upper management. And believe it or not, the story's coming to a close soon. It's been a long one. But the CFO walked in and she said, look, I'm really busy. I don't know why I'm here. And my business partner, Steven, looked at her and he said, give us about 20 minutes. And I think you will know why you're here. And it's really important. Like we asked everybody in this meeting for a reason.
Yeah.
And so we started talking to them and asking questions and letting them unfold what was going on. And so the team could see what the shipping manager needed. And they could see what the IT person needed and where the disconnect was. At some point, the CFO looked at us and she said, oh, this is why I have 3 or 4 people hand matching invoices at the end of every day. I said, yes, this is why. And she said, well, what's the solution? And we said, well, we know what the shipping guy needs, and we can take that file from these other people. We'll write a script that will rewrite it in the format he needs so he doesn't open it.
Yeah.
And then when you go to import it, it won't break. And,
Yep.
For basically a 1 hour meeting and maybe 3 to 4 hours of work, we fixed a problem that was, costing them, I don't know, $600 a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Total labor hours. Maybe that's a
Yeah.
slight exaggeration, maybe 400, which doesn't sound like much, but certainly adds up when you have
Every single day.
every
That's
single
eight.
day.
That,
And it doesn't take into account the opportunity cost of 3 of the smartest financial people in the business were spending an hour a day or more. And the most important operations person in the entire company at the nexus of every single logistics piece of the company was spending an hour a day massaging a spreadsheet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
management by walking around is if anyone else had walked into that business and did what I did, which I like to ask 3 questions. What are you doing? Why did you do it? And what did you expect to happen? So what you wanted. And I uncover all sorts of things. I did a similar thing in a shipping with a shipping team where they pushed a button just like once again World Ship, and they had something like 250 labels pop up, and about 200 of them had a big black stop sign on them because there was something wrong. And because of my 30 years of experience integrating this stuff, the second I saw that, I knew exactly what was going on, and I said, give me about an hour, and I'll come back. And I went over to the sales team who were phone order folks, and I said, hey, does anybody here open a spreadsheet every day to check it for something? And oh no, we do all our stuff through the web, and then it goes into the ERP through that. Okay, great. And I went over to finance and I said, does anybody here, do you guys open a spreadsheet to check anything? And she said, I don't think so, but Janice over here, not her real name, she does something like that, I think, but so I went over, and this is somebody that I had actually known for a number of years, and I said, hey, what are you doing? He said, oh, I'm checking the spreadsheet. And I said, great. Where is that spreadsheet, by the way? He said, oh, well, it's on the D drive inside the UPS folder, inside the key folder, which is the key file for the UPS shipping team. And I said, oh, well, what are you doing? She's like, well, I go through this list every day and I'm looking for fraudulent orders, and I double check it with the, PayPal and the bank statements. And I said, okay, well, let me show you how to use, since this is an integral part of what you do, you have that information, but you're actually opening a file and breaking the shipping integration tool, and they're having to manually update somewhere between 150 and 200 orders a day in the UPS World Ship machine. And she was like aghast. And I said,
Yeah.
don't worry about it. It's an honest thing. Let me show you how to open that up without messing with the formatting. Save it to another folder so you can have a history of that, and then you can look at that file. And so we did that. And the next day, when Jose and gang in the shipping room clicked the print button, they got about 3 of those black stop signs. Which was a little bit normal because it's a little UPS address checking is all that was going on there.
Yeah.
They had to double check it.
Yeah.
But,
And that's
so
a great example. I mean, it's a great example of just taking the time to look through what's going on rather than fixing the problem right there and then going on and knowing you're going to have to fix that problem again and again and again and again. And in business, those little problems like that add up to hundreds and thousands and millions of hours every year if you're not taking
they really do. And in the thread of conversation on LinkedIn about this topic that you started last week in support of this event has a conversation going on about this that I've weighed in on, because entropy and chaos enter systems all the time, whether you like it or not. And this is exactly how it enters. Is you have really good employees who have a job to get done, and something happens that tweaks what's happening that day, and they figure out a way around it, and it's good for them, and it's not necessarily good for the company. And it doesn't matter how good your setup is, how recent it is, how good your support team is. That's going to be happening every day. And so if you're not out there asking these questions and maintaining the systems, and it doesn't matter if it's an ERP, your website, the integrations, the shipping team, the buying team, procurement, and logistics, it's going to happen. It's the nature. It's human nature. It's business nature. And our jobs as leaders is to help people deal with the chaos in a business, minimize it, and also the chaos personally. Like, I'm a big fan, not just of leading companies, but of leading individuals and teaching them to be leaders, by being better people. And I hope I wake up every day and get better.
Yeah.
But like
That's
fishing,
awesome.
some days I catch better and some days I don't.
Yeah. And some days you wonder why you're fishing.
Yeah. Why am I I don't even know why I'm standing in this river right now.
Yeah.
There's no fish, there's no eagles, there's no beavers, there's no people, there's no fun.
Yeah. But that's a great example though. If I think about what I was hoping, part of hoping what we would cover is really about how you take technology and take the time to really make sure that human interface and that human design is working. So you're really getting the efficiency and the effectiveness from that technology, because we spend, lots of times hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars in the companies for the technology, all the way from the devices to the software to run them to the how they work together. And then now when you look at how your website interfaces with a CRM, which interfaces with your ERP, which interfaces with all your customers and their ordering systems, or if you're on e-commerce, the third-party platforms, and sometimes you've got the automated data flow between those. And quite honestly, some of them, if they break, you can't manually keep up anymore.
Oh, you can't. And the world has definitely changed because of COVID, and a lot of habits are changing. And a lot of what we do right now, have been doing, is actually, in a certain sense, the way people's habits have changed for COVID has brought to light the things we've been saying for 20 years.
Yes.
Trade shows were a significant way for a wholesale manufacturer of almost anything to get their products into the hands of retailers anywhere in the world. And, with COVID, we're not having trade shows. But what's true is that I'm going to use the Amazon example. We all know how to place an order on Amazon. Mm-hmm. And ipso facto, we know how to place an order on every well-made website in the world. Everyone else. We could place an order on a Russian website in Cyrillic and probably succeed if it had the picture of the thing we wanted, even though we couldn't read the language, right? So it's like walking. And so if you have systems that introduce obstacles that aren't like walking, you're building systems that aren't really going to be used much. And what I mean by that, so contrary to that, if you're building systems that are like walking, like a website, they're going to get used. And the information that I bring from my consumer products good background in the specialty outdoor industry, which for those of you who wonder what that is, that's the place where Patagonia and Hydro Flask and North Face live. And it's an exciting place to be because it's progressive in terms of its relationship to environmentalism and globally conscious thinking and circular economy stuff, and hopefully the stuff that will help businesses save the world instead of destroy it. Mm-hmm. But what I bring from that is I've been on both sides, and there are a lot of systems out there that Bob from Bob's Bait and Tackle in Eufaula, Alabama, he can't use it because it's a fancy system that was built by people who built something that doesn't look like a website, and it can only be used in certain conditions. One of which is it can't be used at a trade show unless that company maybe spent $10,000 on a fancy industrial strength iPad with a special app and paid for an extra seat in the ERP, which might be $5,000 or $6,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so what I tell people, and the thing that we've built for manufacturers and retailers, and especially food manufacturers works well for too, is your website's already there. It is an input tool for your ERP, nothing more, nothing less. Well, maybe more because it's a marketing tool too, right? But why would you have your outside sales reps work in some other platform when they could just as easily place that order on your website? And why would you have your customer in Eufaula, Alabama, place an order through some platform that's hard to use when you could just have them place the order on your website? And, why not your inside sales reps too?
Yeah.
And a lot of what we built are literally because the manufacturers we work with are saying to us, hey, we can't place orders on our anywhere right now when we go to trade shows. The Wi-Fi is not very good, and these tablets they gave us are nuts, and it's expensive. And essentially, when COVID hit and our companies that were working with us stopped going to trade shows, they already had the platform. We built it for them, and their sales reps were already tied to their retailers in their specific regions. The in-house sales reps were already connected to those outside sales reps. Sales managers were already connected to the system and understood how it worked. And so to actually ask the sales reps, instead of going to the trade show, let's talk to you about using the website. We didn't have people coming to us saying, I don't understand how this works.
Yeah.
Because they've done it before, right? So that's, if I could, pitch what we've done, the tool we built using open source software can be connected to any ERP, and you can use it for that. Like if you're Cisco and you deliver food all over the United States, you can use our tool to put it in the hands of the people who are buying from every location.
And every
Jose,
level.
who owns the little Mexican, at every level. If
That's
Jose at the Mexican restaurant needs cans of tomatoes and whatnot, he can get on his phone and place an order. He doesn't even need a Wi-Fi to do it.
Yeah.
So
that's taking that human design into account when you're doing it, so that it makes it easy. And then on the backside, adding the technology to it that understands that when Damon orders, this is who Damon is. Damon is, he's a customer, he's a distributor, he's a inside salesperson, he's a support person, he's a whatever, and giving them the right experience for that. And also the thing that I think is really cool about it is, if you're in e-commerce and everybody is using your site, but you're able to change those kind of things, you have to be able to, you find problems a lot faster, because I've seen it a lot of times. If you launch something on your e-commerce site, if you've got your own website and you do it, you can have things that don't work and you don't realize it. But when you got all these other people that that are integral to your business, that they'll be telling you that you're going to get that call. The customer's just going to go, it doesn't work. They jet. You don't even know. Yep. They're going to take the time to tell you that your best product isn't loading a price or just says you got no inventory. They're not going to take that time. And I think that's something just really cool too, is you get that instant feedback on things that you're working for.
Oh yeah. And those dealers are your best partners. And when you listen to them, you're going to make a better experience, and they're going to buy from you more regularly.
Yes.
Yeah. And I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
Over and over.
Yeah, and that's another great point, is when you're engaging people at all levels, if you're getting the feedback and how it would make it better for them, and look at the common avenues across that, you can make the biggest impact for that interface and the efficiency and the effectiveness of it across a wider range of people. That's really cool. That's really cool. I'm just fascinated by it, because I think it's something that, you literally go out, and even years ago, I was in companies where you spent more than $1 million on ERP systems, and now it's in the multiple millions in some of these places and tens of millions in some. Yep. And the interface seems like that's always the clunkiest part.
Yeah.
You got
the challenge with ERPs is that even the people who build the ERPs, I'm going to say that build them, not the ones who did the coding on the background, but the salespeople and the implementers often don't understand the ERP thinking and the structure that ERPs are trying to implement. And they're often sold and implemented by people who are very smart, who have a very linear way of thinking. And ERPs aren't linear. They're in a certain way, they're a little bit closer to non-relational databases, which is getting a little nutty. But if you're a linear thinker, like you're an accountant and you go set up an ERP, you're going to create mayhem for everyone around you, because businesses don't work in a linear fashion.
Yes.
Just like if you're in manufacturing and you run a cut and sew facility, and you understand some of the better operational ways to run a cut and sew line, oftentimes people will take what's called one-piece flow, which is a very good way to run that business or run that line, and they'll think the word line and they just run it in a line. Well, it turns out one of the best, fastest ways to sew stuff in a line is to have it in a U shape.
Mm-hmm.
Or what they're calling an infinity cell. It reduces the distance between the people who are working. They can communicate faster. They don't have to reach as far. It's an interesting thing. But once again, linear thinking can be a tragedy when you get into implementation of systems like ERPs and websites for that matter too.
Yeah. So. That's awesome. It's great to get to talk to you, because I can tell from talking to you that the deep technological expertise, but I'll say the cool part is you don't find many people that have thought about the human factor as much as you have. And I can see how, when you be working with clients, how that's very, very advantageous and beneficial, because that last bit of interface is where you really make your money on these things or get the benefit from them.
Yep.
So, well, Steve, it's been awesome having you on today, and we'll have to have you back again. It's been a wonderful
conversation.
Because we're sitting here talking about improving effectiveness in technology, or improving technology effectiveness in business. And I think people might have thought, well, we're going to talk about technology and what platforms use and all that kind of stuff. But really talking about the human interface, I think is the place where we really need to start, because there's so many companies that have probably decent technology in their companies now, but they haven't taken the time to check that and make sure that it's working right at the human level.
Yep.
And
it's got to start there. And there's a lot of technologies out there, and I don't pretend to understand them all. And I try and be platform agnostic myself, because it's not about any one particular tool. So,
yeah, that's what I enjoy. That's what I enjoy about talking with you, is because, there's a lot of people that are specialists in a certain thing, but then there's people that are specializing in moving businesses forward.
Yeah.
And that's what I think you guys do. So it's great having you here today. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening to us today. Thanks, Steve, for being here. How can people get a hold of you?
It's been a pleasure to, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can go to either of my websites. There's dotcomjungle.com, and the globally conscious leader.com is a leadership training and mentoring program that I'm working with a friend named John Laney. That's really exciting, actually integrating a bunch of thought leaders in the especially outdoor retail world to actually mentor and train the leaders of tomorrow. And then I've got my SR Consulting .VIP, because you're very important people.
Nice.
There's contact forms on all of those, and you can get in touch with me there.
Nice.
Come say hi on LinkedIn.
Yep. And sorry I cut you off there. I was getting excited, man. I get excited when I talk to you, because we have a good time. And I just really appreciate you stopping by and sharing the knowledge and sharing the great fishing stories and the growing up stuff that had to be incredible. So thank you.
Thank you for having me on, and maybe we'll have an entire fishing episode next time.
Maybe we will.
Tell you about the time I almost killed some people.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks so much. Hey, I didn't say this. Thanks, Chris. You're on. You put this up a while ago. I didn't put it up yet, but thanks a lot for being on. We will be back again on Thursday, talking with more people in business. Thanks so much, Steve. Thanks everyone for listening. We're out for now.
Have a good day. Thank you.